My conniving sister-in-law swiped my family heirloom necklace and attacked me when confronted. So I had her arrested and pressed charges. My entire family took her side. And my brother went as far as forging evidence to prove her innocence. My brother and sister-in-law had come over to my parents' house. And during dinner, I asked her directly about my missing heirloom. I demanded to know where my great-grandmother's necklace was. And pulled out the security footage I had from my bedroom. I played it, and clear as day, there she was, sneaking into my room, rifling through my jewelry box, and stealing it. My brother was the first to defend her, saying she had a good reason. I asked what reason could possibly justify theft, and she admitted she had pawned it to afford their honeymoon. I lost it instantly. I called her a deceitful liar and turned to my parents, who were just sitting in stunned silence, and told them to call the police because I was pressing charges. "Oh no, you're not," my sister-in-law snapped before lunging at me. She slapped me hard and yanked my hair while shrieking insults. Then, she grabbed a wine bottle and shattered it over my head, causing blood to drip down my face. Amid the chaos, I saw my mother in the background, frantically dialing 911. The police arrived quickly, and when they saw my injuries, they demanded to know what had happened. I started explaining, but my sister-in-law kept shouting over me, making the officers more suspicious. They asked to see the footage, and once they watched it, they had all the proof they needed. Vanessa was handcuffed and taken away, right in front of the whole family. I felt a strange sense of relief. You see, Vanessa always had to be the center of attention, especially when it came to grand occasions. She was obsessed with extravagant parties and living a life of luxury. She wanted to be treated like royalty, but she never had the means to support her fantasies. She and my brother, Jason, were always spending more than they earned. When she planned their honeymoon, she acted like it was some kind of high-profile celebrity event. She needed the most exclusive resort, the best flights, the most lavish experiences, regardless of the cost. She was notorious for maxing out credit cards, borrowing money, and doing anything to fund her extravagant lifestyle. Jason knew they were drowning in debt, but he enabled her. He had a history of dating women who cared more about material possessions than real connections. His relationships were always with women who seemed dazzling on the surface but had no real depth. Vanessa was no different. She was charismatic, but her obsession with status was evident from the start. Jason saw the warning signs, but he ignored them. He convinced himself that Vanessa's need for wealth and luxury wasn't as extreme as it actually was. Deep down, he feared he'd never find someone else, so he turned a blind eye. Even after she stole from me and was arrested, Jason reacted just as I expected. Without hesitation, he bailed her out of jail. He didn't care that she had betrayed our family's trust. To him, she was still innocent. Later that night, Jason stormed into my room, furious. He accused me of blowing things out of proportion and said I was being cruel over something insignificant. He claimed the necklace wasn't worth much anyway, and argued that Vanessa was just desperate for money. He insisted that, since she was part of the family now, she had just as much right to it as I did. I was livid. The necklace wasn't about money, it was about legacy. My own brother couldn't understand why it hurt so much. On top of that, she had physically attacked me. And she was lucky I was only pressing charges for theft, not for assault. Instead of acknowledging any of this, Jason twisted the story to his advantage. He told our family I was being petty and that I had always been jealous of Vanessa. He even went so far as to tell our extended relatives that I had given her the necklace as a wedding gift. My parents, who had initially supported me, started to waver. Jason had always been the favorite since he was the youngest sibling, and it wasn't hard for him to shift their perception of me. He played the devoted husband role, claiming he was just protecting his wife. A few days later, I got a call from my mother. I almost didn't pick up the phone. I knew what was coming, but I did anyway. The moment she started talking, I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. First, there was that hesitant small talk. The kind where you can tell they're just trying to find the right moment to bring up the real reason for the call. Finally, she got to it. She told me she'd spoken to Jason, and he had told her the whole truth. She said it was really disappointing to hear and that the situation upset everyone. I didn't say anything, just let her talk. I could already tell from the tone of her voice that Jason had gotten to her. She seemed to believe him, or at least enough of his side to think I was partially responsible for everything. She went on, saying the situation had spiraled out of control. And then she told me I should apologize to Vanessa. She said if we talked it through, it could help heal the family. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Apologize to Vanessa, the woman who slapped me and broke a bottle over my head after she stole my heirloom necklace and pawned it? I felt my chest tighten as I realized what this was really about. My mom wasn't thinking about me. She was worried about how things looked. She was more concerned with smoothing things over than acknowledging the reality of what had happened. I ended the call soon after. Before long, half the family had taken Jason's side while the other half stood by me. It was unbelievable, my own family was turning against me because of his lies. I was heartbroken, but I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to let Vanessa get away with stealing from me. I decided to press charges. If Jason wanted to protect his wife no matter what, that was his choice. But I wasn't going to let them gaslight me into thinking I was in the wrong. It was theft, plain and simple. Jason wasted no time twisting the situation to protect Vanessa. As soon as I pressed charges, he started telling anyone who would listen that I was just after the money and had blown everything out of proportion because I was jealous of Vanessa. According to him, I had always been jealous of their relationship. And that's why I was making such a big deal over a necklace. I soon heard through the family grapevine that Jason had been calling relatives, claiming I had put Vanessa in jail because I couldn't stand the idea of him marrying someone as good as her since I hadn't found my person yet. He painted me as some greedy, vengeful sister who couldn't handle his happiness. It didn't take long for people to start believing his lies. Relatives who had initially supported me began questioning whether I was being too harsh, asking if pressing charges was really necessary. I knew I couldn't handle this legal battle alone, so I hired a lawyer. I thought the evidence would be straightforward, security footage, and the undeniable fact that the necklace had been sold, but I had underestimated just how far Jason would go to protect his wife. As soon as the legal process began, Jason started working behind the scenes to sabotage me. My lawyer informed me that Jason had gone even further. He was bribing people to testify against me. He paid off distant family members to say that they had heard me claim I didn't care about the necklace and had given it to Vanessa as a wedding gift. It was a complete fabrication, but the sheer audacity of it was staggering. Jason was doing everything in his power to discredit me, and some of the bribed people were even willing to go on record with false testimonies that could weaken my entire case. It didn't take long for my lawyer to catch on that something wasn't right. The worst part came when Jason submitted supposed evidence to the court. Fabricated text messages between me and Vanessa. It was a nightmare I never thought I'd have to endure. My lawyer showed me the screenshots, and I felt my stomach drop. They looked like something I might have actually sent, messages that made it seem like I had told Vanessa she could borrow the necklace whenever she wanted. One of the texts even went as far as to say, "You can keep it if you like." I had no idea how Jason had managed to fabricate something like this, but it was clear he was going to stop at nothing to protect Vanessa. But it didn't end there. My lawyer managed to track down one of the relatives who had come to testify, and off the record, they admitted that Jason had pressured them to lie. He paid them to say that I didn't care about the necklace, that I had practically handed it over to Vanessa without a second thought. For Jason, it wasn't just about winning the legal battle. It was about making me out to be the villain. Every new jab he threw reminded me that my own brother would rather see me fail than admit that his wife had done something wrong. The day of the trial felt suffocating. I walked into the courtroom, knowing this would be the moment everything would come to light. My lawyer presented our case, showing the security footage of Vanessa sneaking into the room, documents proving the sale of the necklace, and all the evidence of her theft. But as the witnesses took the stand, Jason's plan began to unravel. The first witness, a distant cousin, faltered under cross-examination and admitted, under pressure, that Jason had paid him to tell the false story. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. Tension built as more testimonies came forward, each person revealing how Jason had bribed them to lie. First, it was the cousin, then a family friend. Each confession chipped away at the story Jason had tried to weave. These were people Jason trusted to cover for him. But under oath, they couldn't keep up the facade. The real blow came when my lawyer presented the fabricated text messages that Jason had created to make it look like I had given Vanessa the necklace. Expert testimony confirmed the messages had been digitally altered, solidifying that Jason had tried to deceive the court. The judge was appalled by the extent of Jason's lies and ordered his arrest for fabricating evidence and bribing witnesses. Jason was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, his desperate attempts to control the situation completely collapsing. Now left to face the consequences alone, Vanessa was convicted of theft. The evidence against her was undeniable, the security footage and sales records sealed her fate. The judge awarded me the full value of the necklace, along with part of the inheritance my brother and parents had tried to keep hidden from me. Apparently, there had been more money left to me by my grandmother, but Jason and my parents had decided to manage it without telling me. There was a small trust fund meant for me, but instead of being transparent, my family had kept it from me. Jason, being the responsible one in their eyes, had been managing it, or more accurately, blowing through it. He'd used part of it for his own expenses and hidden the rest, figuring I'd never notice. That was the final blow. My parents, who had taken Jason and Vanessa's side, now had to face the fact that they'd been backing the wrong people. Walking out of that courtroom and seeing my mom's face absolutely wrecked me. For months, she'd been the one trying to hold everything together when Vanessa went to jail after the fight. My mom had been more worried about saving face than anything else, but seeing her now, after Jason had been arrested for everything he'd done, hit me hard. She looked like she'd been gutted. She had been holding on to hope that things could go back to normal. But now, with Jason being led away in handcuffs, she had to face the reality that her son was going to prison. Once the legal dust settled, the trust was finally transferred to me. At first, it felt weird, like the money was tainted by everything that had happened, but after all the chaos, I knew I needed to get away. So I used part of that inheritance to escape, booking a vacation to the Cayman Islands. I figured if I was going to use this money for anything, it might as well be to find some peace for myself. The Cayman Islands felt like the furthest I could get from all the mess. I found it ironic that the same inheritance Jason had tried to keep from me was now funding my vacation, while he was going to spend years in a cell. Once I arrived, it felt like I could finally exhale. I wasn't constantly thinking about the trial or my broken family anymore. It was just me, the ocean, and a chance to finally process everything that had happened. I swam, I read, I laid in the sun, and for a while, it was just about me. Now, Jason is in prison, Vanessa's reputation is in ruins, and my relationship with my family is complicated. I've cut ties with my brother completely, and while my parents are trying to make amends, it's hard to forgive them for how they treated me during this whole ordeal.